I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Leavenworth County Commission. Would invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the record, all three commissioners are present today. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today and would like to open up with public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, come forward, state your name and address. And the ground rules are there will be no inappropriate language. We are live on YouTube, so we can't have that. And if it happens, it will be asked to leave the meeting.
Thank you.
So.
My language will be appropriate, I promise.
I hope so.
I want to thank the Commission for putting the additional recycle bin in Tonganoxie. I don't know if it's there yet, but I recycle every week, and I do that because I think it's important to the environment. And I think you guys must have done it because you're concerned about the environment, and I appreciate that. I also know you've caught a lot of grief in the last week and a half, and I'm sorry for that for you, because I know, having served on the school board, that you run for these offices because you're concerned about the community and about the people that you represent. And I appreciate the work that you do. Having said that, I'm having a hard time reconciling your concern about the environment with recycle bins and not about Tyson, or at least as much as I would hope you would be concerned about. There's a lot of information out there. I hope that you will take the time to find it. And I guess my last question is, as a constituent, what information would I need to bring you, or who should I get to address you to talk about environmental concerns that would have a difference in your decision-making process?
I imagine it would be EPA or Kansas, KDHE.
I think we're going to have those people available to us.
Okay.
And to the public.
People not from Tyson, not
right.
brought to you by Tyson.
No, right. They won't be from Tyson.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, and again, I thank you for the work that you do, and particularly the recycle bin.
Could you give us your name?
I'm sorry, I'm Linda Sturgeon. I live at 16950 206th Street, Tonganoxie.
And
3
about
miles due.
Right. Yeah, I know where you live. I just needed for the record.
I understand.
On the recycling, I believe they dumped that Monday and picked it up, and we were down there meeting with the contractors on Tuesday, and they were full again.
I went up there Tuesday morning.
And it was full.
And it was full. I mean, we stuffed some in there. I didn't dump any on the ground, but it was so full I had to take part of it home.
Right.
I'll take it this afternoon.
And it was constant. While we were there, people were driving away, did not dump because they were full. They took their stuff back home, so. But I'm not sure if 3 bins is going to work.
I don't think it is, but
we're going to have to do something else then.
Yeah.
But again, it's an environmental issue, and I think we got a way bigger environmental issue.
And then,
you can put 100 of them there, and it's not going to offset the pollution that this plant's going to cause in the county and surrounding counties.
Yeah, and then like I said, we're kind of this all came about because it was used to be recycling at other locations. Provided, and so we didn't have any budget for this.
Right.
Taking it out of Public Works is.
Yeah, just for the record, we will be up here Monday requesting funding for that additional recycle bin. So it's not going to be there yet.
Okay.
I wonder if we need a work session to discuss this and see what other options we could use.
Okay.
Rather than just all these bins sticking.
Right. Well, and maybe David can bring something Monday. We've got an updated agenda for next week.
Okay.
David will be here.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you for your comments.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak. Ted Ward, 18433 Leavenworth Road these days. I have a handout I'd like to hand out, just some notes on, I think, why Tyson chose the Leavenworth County location in the first place is because of all the lack of regulation, the lack of environmental regulation. The plan initially laid out by Tyson and the BOCC does not address the following issues, and I'd like to hand you my notes because they're rather long and then I don't take that much of your time. Public Works.
Mark? Get a copy. I'll get one. Okay.
There's quite a bit in the notes. I don't expect you to address, everything this morning immediately. Let me get to council.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll just touch some key points real quickly. There is no regulation for a CAFO. There are no CAFO regulations in the county at all. There's none existing. I looked into Missouri's regulations. They identify their aquifers. They have a class system. They identify them A, B, C, and D. And an A aquifer you cannot build over the top of. We have no such system in place at all. I think we need one. The other thing, there's just an awful lot. There's an awful lot in there. I'm just going to leave you with this. Without the environmental regulations, all future residential growth in Tonganoxie and Leavenworth County will stop. When I came out here in 2005, 2006, Tonganoxie was the fastest growing city in the state of Kansas. Incredible opportunity. And I looked at, instead of building houses on the 2.5, which I could be rezoned, I built large lot subdivisions. I could have made a lot more money. I would have made $500,000, $750,000 more on one of the subdivisions that I built if I had squeezed all the houses together. And the reason I chose Leavenworth County was the government, the people, the sheriff's department, which I think is incredible, emergency management. It's a great county. What a great place to live. And when I see something like this pop up, I lay this at the state. And I think when we come back to finding out who at state is burying things, because I can't get any answers from KDHE. Department of Agriculture seems to be right on top of this. And to push that on top of an aquifer, there's no environmental study. When I went to do mine, had to have a phase 1 environmental. So how is this proposed without any environmental study? This project that's come about that everybody's so against. And I would also like to ask the commission at this time is, if at my expense, would you accompany me on a trip to Sedalia and to Knoll, Missouri? We can fly. We fly. We have a small plane.
I might answer that question for you at administrative business.
I'm sorry?
I said I'll answer that question for you during administrative business.
So,
responding to one thing that you have here, I have requested over and over an environmental impact study. I think it is vital, it is necessary, and we should demand that.
Right, but Commissioner, has that been swept under the rug? I mean, that's kind of the impression I'm getting. I'm not up here to throw rocks at you all. I'm here to find out, how did something like this come about so secretively and be so buried that nobody saw it coming? I mean, everybody's been blindsided by it. Everybody has, except for the people that had the NDAs, which, you saved my tail from a lawsuit. I just sold a very expensive house on August 14th. The house closed. I would have had a target on my back for a lawsuit had I had any information about this. Mr. Brewer and I spoke about that.
But as far as I know, nobody has applied for changing the zoning of that property yet. Am I correct?
That's correct.
But we can't.
There have been no applications for rezoning.
There's been no application for
Okay.
rezoning, so a lot of these things
We don't have a development agreement in place, but I'm sure part of the development agreement will require what Commissioner Graber has brought up.
Well, that is vital, and I hope the people in Topeka understand we need an environmental impact study, particularly if this lies over an aquifer.
And we will have the ability to make that request as part of the development agreement.
My concern is that you can't make regulations retroactive and expect them to stand up in court. And that's why I think that's why in my outline here, I'm showing you what kind of regulations I think you need if this should happen, or any other plant that uses anhydrous ammonia in the percentages that they use. That plant, if the proposed plant is 2 miles from a school, 600 students. I have the OSHA statement on what you have to do on an anhydrous ammonia leak. That plant would be dead downwind. I'm saying the proposed plant, what we're hearing that hasn't been applied for yet, would be dead downwind. of an elementary school that you pay $27 million for. It's 147,000 square feet. Nicest school in the state. This OSHA report is incredible because they even tell you how to set up the morgue on the back, on site. I kid you not. This is available. This is available. This is how serious this is. The impact that this proposed plant would have on the county, just economically, is horrendous. You know, again, it's just proposed. I know they haven't applied for the permit yet. I believe the deal is contingent. The real estate deal is contingent on the zoning change, that it may not happen. It's the worst location possible to do that without all the regulations in place. And even then, you're still going to devalue all of the residential properties. So again, I would ask you, even though they have not applied for a zoning change yet before the commission, could we try to get out ahead of the game, get ahead of the ball a little bit, and just do a little fact-finding trip at my expense? I would pose that to you. I'd be happy to buy you breakfast. You won't need lunch.
I'll have to decline on that. That might not look too good.
Okay. So possibly after the fact. Okay.
Not a comment.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mike Bogart. I live at 18750 in Tonganoxie. I have one question for the commissioners this morning. Various officials, government officials, have gone to Arkansas to visit with the Tyson people. I'm asking you gentlemen this morning to tell us whether you have made that trip.
I have not.
I did not.
I have not.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cooper Arnold, 20874 225th Street, Tonganoxie. I want to say, first of all, my number one reason for opposing this plan is obviously the environmental problems that it comes with it. You guys have heard a lot about that, so I don't want to be redundant and go over that again. I just want to put one point on that. This company has a long history that we're not really able to trust what they're able to say here. So even if they come in and promise the moon, we're still going to have the problems associated with it. An issue that I don't think has been covered near enough. This is from a journal paper from the Appraiser Journal, Winter 2015, written by John A. Kilpatrick, PhD. This is specifically relating to property values surrounding animal operations. This is just a brief paragraph. I'll read it and then go take my seat again. And then I would like to leave a copy of this. I did only bring one, so I'll leave it with someone so you guys can take a look at it at your convenience. Cool. An animal operation can affect the value of proximate properties in two ways. First, animal operations have a substantial indirect negative economic impact on surrounding communities, including property values in those communities via shifts in sources of purchases and other inputs in the factors of production. An early study by Chisholm and Levins reports that smaller farms make nearly 95% of their expenditures locally, while larger operations spend less than 20% locally. Gomez and Zhang studied 1,106 rural communities and conclude that economic growth rates in communities with conventional farming are 55% higher than in those with animal operations. They document the negative impact on animal operations on the economy of the surrounding community as revealed by sales tax receipts and reduced local purchases. They note that conventional farmers buy most or all of their supplies locally, thus stimulating the local community and, by extension, stimulating the local real estate market. On the other hand, animal operations bypass local retailers and import the factors of production. Gomez and Zhang state that the animal operations exacerbate the economic negative impact by importing large quantities of pollution and the attendant costs. They also find animal operations cause disruption of local social and economic systems, pollution problems resulting from intensive agriculture, and negative impacts on the quality of life in rural communities. This finding replicates those of an earlier study by someone whose name I can't pronounce, and Connor, which showed animal operations have the effect of crowding out more traditional farmers and decreasing purchases in local stores. Hence, local communities suffer the negative economic byproducts without the attendant economic benefits. I'll go ahead and leave that up here. There's obviously a lot more than that in this paper, but it's a very interesting read. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
morning, Commissioners. Carl Folsom III, 2110 Lawrence, Kansas. I'm a Tonganoxie native. My family's been in Kansas, and Commissioner Smith, you obviously know my family pretty well. We've been in Kansas for 5 generations on both sides of my family, and I'm here today because I think this Tyson project is a project that's going to affect generations of Kansans. And my request, I'm not here today to talk about the environmental or the economic issues or how it's going to affect the schools. I'm not an expert in any of those areas. I'm here today because the process has moved very quickly, and I also believe an environmental impact study is necessary, and maybe a land use study, which Commissioner Smith suggested at a previous hearing, or get some details on are lagoons going to be used. The process that's been used up to this point, and what was passed on August 28th and August 31st by this board, the name Tyson did not come up. And so all the impacted parties were not able to participate in that process. As with Ms. Sturgeon, I'm thankful for your work. I know that you're dedicated public servants and that you want to do what's best for Leavenworth County. I truly believe that. And I think that in order to do that, this project needs to be slowed down and it needs to be looked at from all sides. And right now, specifically, I don't know if the contracts are in place for Suburban Water and Atmos Energy. I know that they were going to be finalized. If they haven't been finalized, I'd ask you to hold off on finalizing them until you can have more information. The August 31st resolution is vitally important, I think, because in that resolution, it's 2017-52, this board said that the county hereby finds and determines that the acquiring, constructing, and equipping of the projects will promote the general welfare and economic prosperity of the county. It seems like, to some extent, this board has already made the decision that this is going to be good for the county. And what's really concerning about that resolution is Section 9, where it says that the company, and that's Tyson, the company is hereby authorized to proceed with the acquiring, constructing, and equipping of the projects, including the necessary planning and engineering for the projects, and entering into contracts for purchase orders. And basically, Tyson is given the permission by this board to hit the ground running. And what I'm asking is for this board to slow down that process. And I found a few cases, I'm a lawyer by trade, I found a few cases where resolutions from county boards were treated as contracts because they were detrimentally relied upon by someone. So if Tyson says, hey, you made this promise, you said that we could get started contracting, engineering, making contracts with chicken producers around the county, they can say that this is an enforceable contract and the county's bound by it. And so, or at least there's that possibility. So what I'm asking you here to do today is to rescind that resolution until the board has more information. The Kansas statutes give this board the power over this issue. Kansas statute 19-101A, that's the home rule statute for county commissions. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. You have the power to rescind a resolution. And I actually found a similar issue that happened out in Meade County. In 1997, Meade County authorized by resolution corporate hog farming. There was an unsuccessful protest petition. The residents tried to stop it, and then the county commission said, well, maybe you want to put this to a vote of the public. And they requested an attorney general opinion, and General Stovall at that time said that you could not make a binding vote of the public. You could do an advisory vote of the county, but of course, KSA 19-101A allows the Board of Commissioners to rescind that earlier resolution. And that's what I'm here requesting. I'm not an environmental expert, I'm not an economic expert, but I think that this moved very quickly. The name Tyson did not come up in the meeting where this was approved. And I think that Tyson could take this resolution and say, this is a binding contract now, and you're all, by specific performance, you're bound to it. You have to make these zoning changes. So if that's even necessary. So the power rests with this board. It's not with the state. It's not with the city of Tonganoxie. This board had the power to cancel that Patriot Highway. This board has the power to slow down this process. That's what I'm requesting today. And the one thing I was going to mention that I haven't yet, the resolution, you know, that's a pretty big tax abatement that was given to Tyson. I know there was discussion that the county's still bringing in 1.3 to 1.5 million a year, and 80% tax abatement means that this board agreed to abate 5.2 million to 6 million per year for Tyson over 10 years. That's over $50 million that the county said, we're okay abating those taxes. I think just to make sure that that number is right, maybe we need more information on what the environmental impacts are, the impacts on other resources of the county, before we have to go forward and be bound, or before the county is bound by that tax abatement. So that's my request. This board has that power. I'm asking you to rescind that resolution and not finalize any contracts until you've had a proper, hear from all parties involved, pro, against Tyson themselves, and where it can be fully fleshed out in the public.
Thank you, Mr. Folsom.
Chairman, I hate to put Mr. Van Paris
I do too, but we're going to.
on the spot. Is the interpretation of that statute correct?
Mr. Chair,
I mean, this is not my interpretation or my understanding.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if your question is whether I believe that the resolution... Could you speak up, please? Yes. Excuse me. If your question is whether the resolution of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds is a binding contract, my opinion it is not. It explicitly references it as conditioned on a number of elements, and I think for Tyson to claim that they could utilize that as a contract based upon detrimental reliance is ill-conceived. The contract based...
I'm sorry, we can't hear it still.
Is your microphone on?
If the issue is whether the resolution adopted by the Commission on August 31st is a binding contract in effect as of today, my answer is no. It's very explicit that it's conditioned on numerous events to take place. For Tyson to claim that it is a contract based upon the theory of detrimental reliance, I think is ill-conceived and not likely to even be brought forward. That having been said, it contemplates that the county would enter into good faith discussions with Tyson to determine whether a development agreement could be formulated and approved by this board at a later time in open session.
But we would have the right to look at every situation as to how it would affect our county.
You are given the general powers as a county commission to do so, Commissioner.
Sorry to interrupt, Chairman.
That's fine. So in your opinion, there is no exposure to the county according to this resolution?
Commissioner, there's no binding contract between Leavenworth County, Kansas and Tyson Industries. I think as this matter, if this matter progresses, a development agreement would be negotiated until such time as that development agreement is finalized and the other contingencies and conditions are met, there would be no binding contract.
Okay.
Thank you.
And would the board be opposed to Mr. Van Perry's researching this a little more and getting back with us Monday on this?
Mr. Chairman, members of this commission, I am reviewing Kansas law with respect to this issue, zoning issues, other matters pertaining to this. It would be very, very helpful if we could get more details either from Tyson or other sources regarding the exact nature of the project that is being conceived and forwarded by Tyson Industries in Leavenworth County.
Would Monday be too soon to get more information on Mr. Folsom's concerns?
I would be happy to give a report to this board on Monday morning. It may not be complete, and there will be no finalized opinion on this matter. All the other issues that are out there are finalized. This is a work in progress. Nothing has been committed to by Leavenworth County. Tyson has announced their intention to build an industrial chicken processing facility in Leavenworth County, and that's where we stand today. there are a number of steps, contingencies, and conditions that would have to be met before this matter proceeds any further.
And one of the most important is that environmental impact study, because the more I get into this, there are underground water aquifers right in that area.
And Commissioner Graber, I'm sure as prior secretary or former secretary of the Kansas Department of Health and Environment Department, you're aware of that. The other members of the board are aware of that, and those issues will need to be addressed.
Thank you.
Okay.
I hate to keep butting in.
No, that's fine. That's fine, and we'll have a report Monday to whether.
Commissioner Smith, members of the board, I will give you a status report as to what I've been able to find between now and Monday. You should expect that there will be a continued series of reports from your staff as this matter progresses.
Okay.
If it progresses.
Like I said, we just got to make sure that the exposure is limited to the county.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I view my role as one of the paramount interests is to avoid creating liability on the part of the county.
Thank you. Yes.
Drew Overmiller, 121 East 2nd Street, Tonganoxie. I hadn't planned on speaking. I can't believe my legs actually stood me up and walked me up here. But I do want to make a point with regards to a process that I work through when I'm in a complicated situation. I always boil it down to the basics, because in this situation is certainly very complicated in the fact that there's a lot of numbers going around, there's a lot of economic impact, there's a lot of focus historically in this county in understanding how can we bring business into this community and help it grow and help the citizens of the overall Leavenworth County and even surrounding areas. As I look at all of this, I'm a little overwhelmed. So I try to break it down into the basics. And I'll frame it this way. Of all of us who have children, one of the things that we do, and oftentimes say, I have four children in the Tonganoxie School District, one of the things I tell them is, choose your friends very carefully. The friends that you bring in to your life can have a positive impact, and they can also be destructive. And as they grow in, and I think a lot of you have had teenagers, you can understand as you look at the friends that they bring into their lives, you start to look at, in the evaluation of whether they're a positive impact on your children or not, it's based upon the history of those people. We also do it in our own lives. As far as, it's not so much what people say, it is how they behave and their history. We do it in business. If I were to apply for a position on the police force, one of the things that they first do is do a background check on me. Because it's not so much what I would say or what I would promise, but it's the history of my behavior that would predict how I would behave in the future. Businesses do it also. When you do a credit check, or if you're dealing with a business-to-business relationship, you're doing a Dun and Bradstreet. And if you're doing a contract for construction or any type of a service, you're looking at what are their qualifications and what is their history. Because ultimately, if you're dealing with the situation now going forward, all you have to go on is promises. So you have to look back and say, how has this person or organization behaved in the past? And that gives me an indication of how I can trust them in the future. Which is exactly why when two farmers do a handshake deal over the hood of a truck, it is extremely binding, because in their minds they know the individuals, they know that the history of those individuals, and they know that their word is good. What's troubling in this scenario with this company is the history. I do not believe that any of their past plants were ever designed not to meet environmental regulations. They were all designed to meet it, and yet there's a pattern there of where promises were made and then the results speak for themselves. So as we go through this process, there's going to be a lot of numbers thrown around, and there's going to be a pattern there of also of how they roll this thing out, I believe. I think there's going to be arguments made about exaggeration of the concerns because they can make the promises now going forward. There's also going to be what I call the timeshare argument. If anybody's ever traveled or gone someplace, you've probably been through a timeshare presentation. And one of the timeshare presentations is, you like money, right? I mean, who doesn't want to save money? Who doesn't want to make money? And they go through this scenario where oftentimes not all of the details are shown. You have to dig into it and understand the details. So I think the environmental impact study is extremely important, and there's going to be a number of other studies that are equally important. However, it's all predicated on the individual or corporation following through with those requirements. So I just ask the commission to keep that in mind and to consider that through this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
You ready for me again?
I sure am.
Mr. Lawfrey, I would like this environmental impact study that you follow up and make sure that it's not prepared by Tyson. I mean, I want an independent impact study. I don't think that's unreasonable in this case at all.
We demand that.
I would just make a comment that having had to do a few different environmental studies, the individual who is required to do the study is never the one who gets to do the study. They have to pay for the study, but it has to be somebody who's licensed with the state of Kansas.
Oh, I know. I've dealt with
and
this
the Kansas
for 4
Department
years.
of Health and Environment will be leading the charge on that.
Thank you.
Curtis O'Rourke, 105 South Village, Tonganoxie, Kansas. Residential builder and on Tonganoxie City Council. It's been a long week, gentlemen. The thing that I would like for you guys to really look at, on the behalf of Tonganoxie, I think there needs to be a little more clarifying and more information given to Tonganoxie a little bit on the behalf of where this began and where it's going to go. Because we've kind of been on the shortfall of a lot of this, on the Tonganoxie side of this, which I know they're watching, Tyson's watching this now and so forth, and they said we was in. Well, some of the paperwork that we've got, we would like to have more of clarification of the information on the city side, or at least on behalf of me, because I mean, I get people calling me, I'm sure you do too, Doug, people calling every day, Facebook messaging me, you know, showing up on my doorstep. You know, there's things that I can't answer myself, and people think that I've known this from the beginning, and we haven't. And that's why I want more information from behalf of you guys, and maybe even the state of Kansas, so I can answer some of them questions, you know, instead of being attacked, and they think I know, which I don't. And that's where I'm saying, on the behalf of the county, I would like some more information from where this is, where this started, and where we're going to go. This is a big company, and you know, they're looking at our county, and you know what? Maybe we're a weak county on our rules and regulations on that behalf, and maybe that's time that we need to reevaluate, you know, for future, for the next company coming in, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, we'll move on to administration. We're going to have to cut it off here pretty quick to stay on, being this is not an agenda item.
Hi, Brian Morley, 23899 Chieftain Road. Thank you for letting me speak. Last time I was really upset. I am still really upset, but I have to say, so driving here from where I live, which is 2 miles away from this proposed site, and I'm driving down, it's beautiful. That whole drive is beautiful. You reach the juncture to turn on 7, You see the NASCAR track, which I was opposed to, but it's beautiful, okay? It's the second largest draw of people in Kansas, and the sunflower field you go by to. Why are we even considering something like this in the jewel of this county? I don't even understand this whole corridor where the builders, the people that own their homes, that take care of their homes, that invest. I don't even understand why it's at this point. And I don't have any political background at all, but we as citizens want a vote. Before you guys even spend any of this money, it's ridiculous. It's our tax money that you guys are spending to even investigate something that we as residents of the area say no, a resounding no. We want to vote. We want to vote before you waste our money on impact studies, because we don't want it. None of us want it. Where are the people here standing up saying, oh yeah, we really want this plant? They don't. Nobody does. It's our home. It's our investment. We love our state. We love our county, and we do not want this to proceed. We want a vote. What do we have to do, guys, to get a vote for our audience here and the audience online? We want a county vote before you waste our money any further. Doug, what do you think?
I think Mr. Folsom brought up a countywide vote that didn't mean anything on zoning. Is that what I understood you to say?
Doesn't mean anything.
Your Honor, or Commissioner Smith, sorry. It was Attorney General opinion 97-83 says that the board could consider an advisory vote. It would not bind the commission, but it would be able to tell the commission what the county felt. But of course the county...
I don't think we need an advisory vote. I think we've already heard enough advisory votes.
But you guys have the power, right? So you need to know what we really want if you are serving us. And so it makes it really clear why waste more money if you guys say, wow, my constituents say a resounding no. I don't care about Tyson. I care about my family. I care about my community and my state, and the pollution is outrageous. Thank you so much, Mr. Graber, for bringing that up, because the pollution is the environmental impact is absolutely beyond compare. We have clean drinking water here. We have clean air. We do not want this.
But like I said, we cannot stop a company from purchasing property and applying for rezoning, and none of that, as far as I know, has happened. The property hasn't been changed and the zoning hasn't been applied for. Is that correct? As of today, still nothing?
That's correct. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I care so much, and I hope you guys care as much as we do, because we're not sleeping at all. None of us are. This is like day in and day out. And we have businesses and families to run. This is hard. Thank you.
We'll move on to administrative business. Do we have any today?
I've got two.
I don't have any.
Commissioner Holland has some administrative business he'd like to bring forward.
I thought I was going to have the Heritage Center put on the agenda, but evidently it got left off.
Okay.
Is there anyone here from the Heritage Center?
I don't see anyone. What did the Heritage Center
they had requested to me for some $5,000 for some emergency repairs, I think it was, and I checked with our Janet Klasinski, our county clerk. The funding is available. I think she even has the number that it could come out of, and I would just like to make a motion to approve that.
I think we would need a formal request from them asking for the funding and stating what it was for.
Well, I'll make a formal request that it is put on the agenda for next Monday.
If we could get a formal request from the Heritage Center with the document, that's all. We can get that added, no problem.
We'll put that on the...
Mark, are you sure we didn't get that? I mean, it's for the finalization of the interior repairs of the center, and maybe I'm going nuts, but I thought we got that.
I thought we did too, so that's why
I haven't seen anything.
Well, we'll get a duplicate of it and follow up.
Before we'll add that to the agenda to be approved for Monday.
Would you follow up and try to get that?
I will. I'll call today.
Okay.
I do want to make a statement too. This gentleman, I believe, asked if we had been several places. Yesterday, I was invited to go down to Tennessee to view one of the Tyson plants, or numerous facilities. And I wanted to tell the commission that that's what I did all day yesterday. I did go down to Tyson plants. I did view it. I got to talk with the commissioners down there. I got to talk with the Tennessee State Board of Agriculture. I got to meet with not only those people, but also with mayors of the surrounding cities, and got information back from them, and asked them questions that Clyde had been concerned, and so had Doug, and I've asked them for their information. I asked them a lot of questions, and I have a notebook that has got notes in it. I wasn't prepared today because for one thing, it's not on the agenda, and I just wanted to report that back to you, that I was down there.
Thank you for your transparency.
Right, and I want to see, and I had several people reference to me, have you seen the facility? I said, no, you need to go visit one. So I went and visited one, along with several other people of the community. Representative Willie Dove was along with me, and he is going to make a proposal on the 15th, I believe it is. Mark, didn't he have a meeting scheduled?
Tomorrow night,
yeah.
Tonganoxie, Chieftain Park.
He's going to make a proposal, and I'll not upstage that. I'll let him make the proposal at that meeting, and that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable telling us who was on? I mean, was it just Willie and yourself, or was there others as well? Or do you want to have them give the opportunity to?
I would rather have them give the opportunity to. I mean, there was a wide variety. I was the only commissioner on board. There was, like I said, Representative Dove. He was the only politician. So there was a wide variety of people. I'm not a politician, but I'm a politician too, I guess. I don't perceive me as a politician. But there were, I think, people from the school board, or one person from the school board. There were citizens that are in groups around Leavenworth and Tonganoxie, and so.
How did they get invited?
Yeah.
I didn't get invited.
Yeah. Who initiated this trip?
I think actually the Department of Ag initiated the trip, and I believe that what Commissioner Graber is referring to, that there will be opportunities for a lot of people to attend and go visit these plants and take tours.
Was this plant one of the slaughterhouses like they're proposing in there, or was it a packing plant?
No, it's the exact same process that is proposed here. It is the exact same process that is being proposed here.
It's kind of like a prototype.
It's
of what they're
25 years
proposing
old
up here,
because they have not built a new plant in over 20 years.
Did you go?
I did not go. I did, however, I was one of the people who went to Springdale, Arkansas, and I think that,
There are a number of former growers or producers, whatever the term is, farmers, I think, who are making themselves available to also talk about that relationship that they have had under those contracts and how that has impacted them. I think that that would help give a fuller story.
I did do that. And like I say, at a more appropriate time, I'll give you a report on that.
Was it former growers? Because under the contracts.
This was a current grower.
Right.
Well, they can't say anything.
Under the contracts, so the contracts that I've seen, whether or not it's kind of industry typical contracts, would have statements in there where once they are working for the organization and have basically incurred that debt to be a grower, they are pressured because there are statements within that contract where anything they say that they impact the business of the company is cause for cancellation of that contract, which in essence puts it at a terrible financial risk to even speak up. So I think that should be taken into consideration in those discussions as far as understanding that umbrella of that, how that arrangement is structured.
I've got to respond to you somewhat. We cannot oversee someone's contract and advise them on the merits or demerits of a contract being offered direct to them. Which can't do that.
Well, and that's where I think the community is stepping up and starting an educational program to really make people aware of the kinds of situations that they be put in.
Pitfalls.
I have no problem with that.
Right.
I'm strictly.
I understand your
Sometimes
the scope
I
of
put
your
my
ability.
attorney hat on and I become a pain in the back of the lap. I know.
It's really an educational process, and that's where I think everybody gets stressed because they don't know how quickly things are going to move, and do we have time to get fully educated on the overall impact that this would have?
Well, I think we do. I mean, because like I said, nobody's applied for rezoning yet. So,
We don't even have that application yet.
that's correct.
However, this is a sizable amount of information to go through, and it will take time.
And has anybody that's been through any plats or lot splits or anything like that, it does take time.
Yeah,
So,
and the
zoning.
community, for the most part, it's been tremendously informative for me to start to understand that process. However, the community as a whole is probably starting in a similar situation as myself in just not fully understanding the time that it takes. And that's where a lot of the anxiety and concern is coming from, given that how that was rolled out, it kind of just dropped on us. So we're catching up.
Okay. All right. Is there any other administrative business?
I have a question for Commissioner Holland. You said that the Department of Ag initiated this trip that you took yesterday. Did they pay for it? Who paid for it? When were you approached about going on that trip? You know, kind of the
I don't know who paid for it.
okay, but it wasn't the county. It wasn't actually
No, it was not the county.
It was.
I was referenced on Tuesday, was it, Mark?
I think that's correct.
I think it was Tuesday.
Tuesday and then
they
travel Wednesday after Thursday, or were you out there just Thursday the entire day?
I was out there Wednesday all day. I left early morning, got back late in the evening. It was up and back.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. Has commissioners had a chance to look at the minutes for September 11th?
I have you, Mr. Chairman. I have no problem with the minutes. I would move their approval.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 And, I have some OCBs also.
I make a motion to approve the OCBs for the chairman to sign a date as is.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 And on Mondays, our agenda for next week, we want to add Heritage Center to Monday.
I do. I would like to add the Heritage
Okay.
Center.
Would that be okay?
Oh, yes. Pardon me.
All right.
Now, would they have to attend, or could they just send a letter of?
Could they just email a request, or would they need to attend, approach the board?
I think as long as we have a request, we're fine. If they'd like to attend, they certainly could.
Well, we love people to attend our meetings. But I know they're busy.
I think the lady has had surgery on a knee
Okay.
or something, and I think that she has trouble with that.
Okay. Well, an email would be sufficient, I think, for a request.
Okay.
Okay, with that, so we need a second on approval of the agenda.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Are we ready now for Falcon Lakes interlocal agreement?
I think
it's.
I'll have their representative present it, but just to give you an update, the agreement's already been approved. What they're asking today is just to add the library and the fire district.
Right. There's two more people that joined on this.
That's right. Evan Fitz with Polsinelli Law Firm here again. Thank you for having me back. This is substantially the same agreement that you approved on August 21st. We are adding the library and the fire district. Mayor Brewer has been out working with them to secure their approval of this agreement as well. The agreement always contemplated that we could add additional taxing jurisdictions. Mr. Lawfrey thought it would be best if we came back to you, since the agreement did technically change since the last time you saw it. But the only changes are to add the library and the fire district, and then to add a signature block for the Attorney General. So the next step after approval of this is, of course, we ship it off to the Attorney General's office and get final approval from them. And that's the final step to have the agreement deemed effective.
Oh, I thought you'd already sent it to the Attorney General.
Coming right now.
Okay.
We need to secure signatures from everybody. We have pretty much everyone's. We need to get yours, of course, and then we'll be ready to go.
Okay.
Chairman, I've got a question. You love my questions.
Yes, sir.
When you add the Baser Library to this, does that not reduce their annual revenue for operation?
It does, in the same respect that it does any other taxing jurisdiction. So they are simply signing on in the same capacity that the city, the county, and the school district did the last time that I was here, to commit to this rebate program, their portion of the tax levy in those years. So that the library and fire district both are joining for that purpose, and they're subject to the exact same limitations and burn-off period that the other taxing jurisdictions were originally.
I guess
It's not a reduction in their current revenue. It's a rebate of future revenue with development that occurs, but they do not reduce their current revenue stream.
Correct. It does not reduce their revenue.
Their current revenue stream is not impacted by this agreement.
I just hate to see anything impact libraries negatively, especially in our wonderful age we live in.
And you'll recall, Commissioner, from the last meeting, we went through a bit of a financial analysis about how this looks in the long term and how it's designed to be very limited in duration and phase out very quickly. So just the same way that we presented before the county and the various other taxing jurisdictions that they would seek benefit, of course, in the long run, the same would apply to the library, the fire district. So we still believe it's a good project for all involved. And as Mr. Laughley correctly pointed out, there's no offset of current revenues, just a reduction, temporary reduction in future revenues when the homes are built.
Janet, am I correct in my concern, or?
It's exactly what was stated. There is no reduction in what they're getting today. Will be a rebate on future taxes for the 3-year period that the plan is in effect on future homes in the new development area.
Okay, thank you.
And none of this will happen without the AG's approval.
That is correct.
That's right.
Okay. And how long do you think it'll take to get a response from the Attorney General's office?
The city's attorney has been in touch with the Attorney General's office. They have a statutory time limit that I'm not
like
remembering
90
off the top of my head.
days?
It's something like that.
Like 90 days.
They try to act much quicker than that.
Okay. So what's before us today that we need to make a decision?
It's
Just
simply
to
the
acknowledge that you've added the library and the fire district?
Correct.
Okay. So do we need a motion on that?
You need a motion to
So
approve the
moved.
agreement.
Did you move?
Second.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 And like I said, none of this happens until the Attorney General approves it.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
apologize for interrupting. If I might, this would be a new resolution number. Becky, what resolution number would that be referenced as?
53.
Resolution number 53 to be approved.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we have anything else before us besides the executive session?
Just the executive session.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Was Leavenworth County Historical Society on the agenda?
The who?
Leavenworth County Historical Society?
No.
No,
I
ma'am.
thought
No.
we were. Carol Mansion.
We just
No.
asked.
We can add it to Monday's agenda, I guess.
No, that's the one I just asked about, the Historical Society.
Oh, I thought you asked about Heritage Center.
Heritage Center.
Or no, it was
Oh.
the Historical Society.
No, you said Heritage Center.
Oh, well, I misspoke then.
Okay, all right. Well, can we take this?
Well, we did get a request, didn't we, from the Heritage Center?
I think we did
No,
too.
we've already, I thought we were more.
Okay.
Anyways.
Hello again.
Hi.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'd first of all like to thank you for your continued support of the County Historical Society and in approving a fund for fiscal year 2018 to which application can be made by county museums and historical societies for funding. These entities do contribute to the overall economic and cultural health of the county, and they should have some degree of support. And I think I've seen here today that I do believe that the citizens of this county do look to have a good quality of life. As soon as bids are gathered by my organization for some improvements and repairs that we need, we will be presenting them to the Commission when your schedule permits. In the meantime, I would like to ask the Commission that if there are any available funds this year, that we would like to request at this time funding of one of our ongoing projects at the museum, specifically the digitizing of our glass plate negative collection of nearly 30,000 negatives. While the Everhard collection was acquired over 20 years ago, this particular project for digitizing and sharing with the public these images has only been carried on for the past 10 years, and we only have a few volunteers that can accomplish this task. We only have one scanner that connects to our museum software program for the management of this collection. So the recent acquisition of the last bit of this Everhard collection, which you are aware of, which we consider the centerpiece of the whole collection, and it has the city scenes and images from over 100 years ago, pointing to the history of our town. We feel like these images need to be brought forth to the public so that they can see what we have recently acquired. So this whole collection of 30,000, people have given $170,000 just to acquire it. And I think that shows that their interest in these images. So I've done some calculations and just a ballpark figure of how many images I feel could be scanned per hour. This whole collection could be ready and available to the general public in 2 years if we had ongoing
scanning the whole time that the museum is open, and that scanner is never quiet. It's always busy scanning these images. So given that, we feel that $5,000 to have someone dedicated to that project would move that fast forward at the museum. So this person is trained, that we have found, in doing this job, but also she could help us write grants. And right now we're needing to write our porch grant again. Our porches in the back are in worse condition this year than they were last year because we had to rip up part of the porch in order to install a new sewer line, which we paid for ourselves. The cost figure that I'm asking for today is $5,000 in order to start this project, get the scanning in a fast forward.
You think this 5,000 would carry you through the year?
It would be for several months.
Not too many months left in the year.
No.
I'll be glad to get this year over with.
Glad to have this last week over with.
And you've identified a fund that these can come from?
Right.
We looked at some contractual miscellaneous that would be available at the board.
And that's not going to have... Funds are available then, bottom line.
I'm going to move approval of the $5,000 request.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
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 Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Now we have an executive session to acquire real estate property. I can assure everyone it has nothing to do or even close to the proposed Tyson site.
Thank you.
Okay. So, David, is appropriate motion would be to go into executive session for a matter of 10 minutes, you think?
Mr. Chairman, I would request the board move or make and adopt a resolution, excuse me, motion pursuant to the provisions of KSA 75-4319 subsection B subsection 6, go into executive session in the purpose of protecting the financial interests of the county. Present would be for the purpose of discussing acquisition of real property. That present would be myself, Mr. Lawfrey, and the 3 members of the board. That this board, and Mr. Ho, Jr., Director of Public Works, to go into executive session effective 10:15 this morning and resume open session in this office, or excuse me, 10:05, and resume open session in this office at 10:15.
And we're going to recess or go to Mr. Lawfrey's office.
Yes, your executive session will be.
All right, that's my motion.
Second.
Voting?
Aye.
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 Okay, let the record show we returned to regular session. No decisions were made in executive session. The discussion was limited to acquisition of real property. Commissioners, anybody want to make a motion? I'll make a motion.
David, could you restate?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it would be appropriate to make a motion to discuss your interim county councilor to enter into negotiations with the owner of certain real property, as was discussed in executive session, to bring any final action to this board to be conducted in open meeting.
So.
Second.
Voting.
Aye.
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 We have any other business for us this time, or a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Voting. Aye.
Aye.